Can you run down the feature film pressure that short films kind of lessen the burden of? So what are kind of some of the problems of a feature that a short film either doesn't have or has a lot less of?
Feature films are a big deal, right? You're usually going to shoot at bare minimum like 12 days, 18 days, 24 days. Short films, I honestly am a big believer in like a weekend short filmmaking, 2 days, maybe 3 days, maybe 4 days, but that's it. So in terms of like, just in terms of a production that you have to manage, shooting 24 days versus shooting 4 days is a radically different thing. Also, you know, quite often smaller crew for a short film because you're quite often doing things without needing to have all that elements that go along with making a feature happen. So you can get away with less people. I mean, I know a lot of people who don't do continuity for a short film, whereas for a feature film, you should have a script supervisor. For a short film, maybe you don't need it. Up to you, really. So, you know, also in terms of the people who work on the short film, quite often it's your friends, it's friends from film school. You don't need to get a professional cinematographer. You know, you can shoot it yourself if you want to. Sound, I always think sound is super important for anything. For a short film or a feature film, you should really make sure you have good sound. As good a sound as a feature film would have. But so sound is something don't skip on. So, you know, production-wise, much easier on a short, less to pull together. And quite often you're doing it when you're in school, too. So you have the advantages of people in school production stuff you can use. The camera can be provided from school. Your classmates are there, so you don't have to work so hard to get a crew. You know, the infrastructure is kind of there for a short film, usually. For a feature, it's a bigger ask to get people to work. You have to pay them. You should do things correctly for a feature, too. And that's the other thing I'll say real quickly for a short film. I always say it's like you could treat it as a dry run for a feature and do everything properly. You know, keep the hours the way you would keep them for a feature, use SAG actors, do a SAG contract, and learn how all that works so that when you make the feature, you're already familiar. And you've already made mistakes. You've made the mistakes on the short film that doesn't count versus the feature. If you make a mistake there, it could be very problematic in many ways. So short film is a really nice way to learn how to do it properly. And so that when you're ready to make a feature, you're ready to make a feature. And that's quite often too why people want you to have made a short first too, because you've learned things so that you're not learning on the feature. You've already, you now are a filmmaker after having made that short film, and you've, you know, shorts are a learning experience for everybody, I always say. So a lot of things will go wrong in your short, but you can salvage it with a short film. With a feature, it could be a lot more problematic. Storytelling, though, too, is a big deal. There's a different kind of storytelling for a feature film than a short film. So for a short film, quite often people will put in so many characters and so many storylines. It's like, no, simplify, simplify. For the short film, you don't need to do all of that. For a feature, you know, it's very hard to do a feature, although there have been some great ones made with like one person, one actor, lead actor of some sort, or one setting. Short film, you can get away with something like that. You can get away with 2 people in a room if you need to. You can't do a whole feature of 2 people in a room. Well, you can, but again, questionable whether people really want to see that. So, you know, also with the short film, and I always try to encourage this too, you can do so many things uniquely with filming. You could actually still shoot 35 with a short film just to have the experience of doing it. You could shoot your entire film with a drone if you wanted to. You could, you know, shoot your entire film with 16 millimeter film. There's so many different ways that you could do it technically that you couldn't necessarily do with the feature. So why not experiment with a short film and try different aspects of things? Storytelling too. You don't necessarily have to do act 1, act 2, act 3, you know. Again, many features have done act 3 first, but with a short, you can totally do act 3 first and, you know, skip 2 and just go back to act 1 at the end. There's also, for shorts, we like a lot of twists and turns and surprises. And with a feature, you know, you can do that, but it's got a lot of story that has to tell. So you can't do as many crazy things as you can do with storytelling as you can with a short.
How should a filmmaker plan out a shooting day?
When you should shoot your short film is when you're available, the people who are going to help you are available, and the location is available. And sometimes it all falls apart on you, and you can just say, well, it's a short film. It fell apart. We can call it a day and do it again next weekend. You know, it was raining that day, for example. Well, with the feature film, you know, it's a problem because you're supposed to be shooting for 7 days, you know, 10 days, 12 days, whatever. For a short film, it's raining that day. Sorry, we're not shooting today. We're going to have to start and do it another day.
Okay, so how much planning though should someone do? Like, let's suppose the stars are aligned and things are actually going to go well. Should they do their own call sheet? I mean, should they really? You said people should act as if it's almost a feature. And
So there's two schools of doing it. You can do it in a dry run for making a feature where you really do everything, do a call sheet, do everything way you should do it like for a feature, so you have that experience of doing it. And I personally like that way of doing it because then you get the double bang for your buck. You get the experience of making a short film and you're ready now to make a feature. And everything that you've learned that you did wrong the first time around with a short, you'll now know to do right for the feature. But I also am a big fan of, like, me and my three pals are going to go make this thing. And so we don't need to plan it all out. I have commissioned a short film. Years ago, I used to do a DV series, and we commissioned a filmmaker to make a short film. And he literally just had his friends do it, and they go up on a bus, and everyone's like, "How'd you get the rights for the bus?" He's like, "We just went into the bus." And, he planned it all out ahead of time, but just he and his friends did it that day, and there you go, it was done. And he didn't get permits, and, they just rented a car. And then he told me later it was involving animals in mascot outfits, driving a car. And he was like, later, I found out they had, like, no vision in those mascot helmets, and they were driving this car, and it was like, yeah, this sounds terrible. This sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen. But it wasn't. It all worked out fine. So, short filmmakers are dumb and we're willing to try anything, and they don't really worry about, it's like, let's just go on the bus. Let's just drive the thing he can't see, but we're only going half a block. Hopefully it'll be fine. And that's why people always get hurt on a short film or something gets broken. You should always prepare for loss and damage on a short film as well. It's a learning experience for all of us. In a similar way, if you're going to do another film with somebody in a mascot suit, now you realize the car needs to be up on a trailer and be professionally trailed, and then they can be driving in because they're not really driving.
Yeah, no, it's interesting where you can kind of get away from it. And we're not advocating, being in major public spots and obstructing sort of the flow of people, but I know one place that there was like a mailbox on this one dirt road, and I would pass it on my way to work. I was like, I really need this shot. Whereas Metro, no problem. That shot I finally actually got a woman from the Homeowners Association who saw me, blocked my car, wanted to know my name. So sometimes it's very interesting what you can get away with and what you can't. For some reason, she saw me. And then on my way to work, after that, the next few days, there were new signs up. No filming.
Whoa.
Well, I don't know what prompted it, but you never know what's going to actually tip the scales a little bit. So.
Well, that's the disadvantage of shooting in Los Angeles because we have so many productions and people are so used to it that, it's not like you're shooting in your hometown. And I always advocate shooting your own hometown because people want to help you there, and there's not that same issue as if you're shooting in Los Angeles. We shot a short film in a mini mall, and it was the perfect location. And we paid everybody. It had a laundromat and a restaurant, and we totally redecorated the restaurant. They had to shut down for the day, and we paid for all of that. These were well-produced, well-funded short films. But anyway, then the owner of the mini mall showed up, and he's like, you have to pay me. It's not the renters of the mini mall, it's the owner. I was like, ooh, okay, lesson learned. Like, shorts are a learning experience for everyone.
Right.
I didn't realize it was the actual owner. So when I say to you, like, you can shoot in your apartment, in reality, you should have the landlord's permission to shoot in the apartment. But you should be shooting in your apartment, whatever. But lesson learned, it's the owners that have to officially give you permission to and sign the release for the location permit.